It's Edge Radio Australia. We're here for the greater wealth. Little bit of a pause there for a dramatic effect as the internet tries to speed up to get to the pace of Edge Radio Australia, mate. Like, we move so fast around here. Tell you what, future's so bright, you got to wear shades.
Online speeding fines.
Oh, I wonder when we'll get a fine for that. Hey, it's got to be coming now.
Good, tax revenue raising, isn't it? Eh?
Geez, mention that.
Yeah.
Imagine just another way of finding tax, eh? Because they just don't have enough. I don't know if this is still the case, right? We'll throw straight in on this. Do you know there was a study done years ago that if you take all the tax and tariffs into account of every dollar that you earn, right, guess how much you actually retain after all of those cross costs?
About 69% of your tax.
No, it's worse.
No,
apparently it was 93%. So you keep 7 cents. Now, when we're talking cents, we're not talking about Shaq, of course. Now, he's on the line there, mate, from a destination unknown, mate. We've spoken earlier today, and you've made yourself very clear about your feelings about particular people. But for right now, let's get into the show and say hello and welcome.
Well, I've decided that I might try woke for a bit.
Oh, if you
just
could,
for a little bit. I'm gonna go out today and buy a skirt. I'm gonna get my hair dyed like different, like multicolors, like so I look like My Little Pony,
nice.
and just give woke a go. You know, like just try it on and just see if I can come out the other end with any sense.
Well, we'll see if it suits you. I will say thank you and a welcome to Fiona, who I haven't seen online before. Really lovely to see a new face. So we'd love to see your comments and thoughts.
It's Fiona. You know who Fiona is.
You know Fiona.
Oh,
I need to catch up with Fiona.
I'm a bit slow on the
uptake.
uptake.
I know who it is because I just texted her and told her I was coming on. So so she's not here for you guys. She's here for me. Fiona, can I get a love shack from you, please?
Clearly, the glutton for punishment if she's come on special to see you. Now, the show is all about this man over here, Blu Sky Factory's own Derek Whittaker, mate. We are going to talk about the great marriage between finance, politics, and, well, actually, it's not a marriage. It's more of a collision course. What are we going to delve into today? What's our first subject?
Well, the first topic is quite significant. It's going to sound boring if you're not really in the loop, but it is very, very compelling.
Why are you so boring, Derek?
It's very compelling. The entire finance industry. Now, there is a cryptocurrency called Ripple.
Yes.
XRP is its ticker. And it's had a 4-year running case against the SEC in the United States.
Yep.
Who claimed that they were selling derivatives by doing what they were doing.
Okay.
Now, they have been found cleared, or they've been found innocent on charges where it was related to retail investors.
Okay.
However, in terms of institutional sales, they have been fined $125 million US.
Right,
now, they're actually quite happy about that because it was looking like it could be $1 billion.
Right.
And there were concerns if the company could survive $1 billion fine.
Yeah, okay.
So this is really interesting for this because two fronts. One, it gives great definition from a legal perspective where Ripple stands now.
This is important. This is very important.
It's the one cryptocurrency that's actually been gone through the courts and now being validated as, hey, you're innocent in this instance. On this one, we want you to tighten up the issues here and there.
Okay.
The second thing is it has implications for the wider cryptocurrency market as well.
Yeah.
So they're all watching this and reading the findings very, very carefully. Will the SEC appeal the decision? They've got about 60 days to do so.
Oh, I reckon they will.
And, well, I don't know. Maybe they'll be happy to move on. But the reality is this is an interesting cryptocurrency. It's one that is trying to work with the banks in terms of cross-border payments around the world. Okay. And so there's a lot of paperwork in this space that you have to do with all the regulation for banks, institutions, and you're not just dealing with one jurisdiction.
Of course not.
You're dealing with the global jurisdiction here. So this is a really interesting space to watch as far as this cryptocurrency is concerned. Of course, those who've been holding those Ripple tokens were very excited on the weekend when that occurred. It did a bit of a 17% surge, but that's pretty normal for crypto. So it's not something that you'd go, oh,
it's
wow.
It's not huge by crypto standards.
A 20% swing up or down is pretty normal.
With crypto, they talk about X, they talk about times, when it goes times its value, of course, and you're talking about percentages, which is far more fiat kind of style. So for them, that's something that's
I'm pretty excited, actually. I mean, the last time that I got $125 million fine, I was celebrating too. Like it was brilliant. I was like, oh my goodness, only 125 million, fantastic.
Isn't that beer
but-
money? I mean, come on. Right?
but I will say this. Thank goodness for the SEC. Thank goodness for the government, because they've really looked after the people, as usual. They managed to not prosecute them for anything to do with retail investors. Now, I actually don't know an awful lot about Ripple or crypto in general, but they didn't prosecute them for anything to do with retail stuff. It was just the institutional stuff they got in trouble for. And let's be honest. I mean, those poor banks and insurance companies, they don't know what they're doing. So, thank goodness the government's there to look after them.
Well, it's interesting you say that because the banks are wanting clarity on this.
Really?
They want to know where they stand in relation to doing deals with this organization.
Well, hang on. Will this court case give that clarity?
I think it will.
Yeah.
I think it's a green light. You're going, okay.
Well, so.
They basically said in the ruling, the judges said it's likely that you've gone over the line here.
Yep.
It's likely you may do that again. We want closer scrutiny, but put this in political context, right? What I've been watching in terms of the Bitcoin 2024 conference that happened 2 weeks ago, where Trump was invited to go, and of course Kennedy was involved as well in this, and Trump's played his hand, so to speak, and saying we want to be number one in the world in terms of development of cryptocurrency. He said that outright. He also mentioned that we want to get rid of the head of the SEC and fire him, and the crowd just went nuts. And he said, I didn't realize that was so popular. Let me say this again. And so, it's really interesting. This is a space that I think is getting political definition. Not just that, then Treasury, there's a bill before Treasury, and they're wanting to hold 5% of Bitcoin in Treasury reserves for the future as well. The United States is going, we're in this. So watch that space because it can totally change, I believe, what the finance industry, how it's operating.
I agree. I mean,
I think you're both a bunch of right-wing conspiracy theorists. When we saw the South American countries do it, it was disgraceful. It should never have happened. When we saw Jamie, what's his name, Jamie Dillon, the head of JP Morgan, say 10 years ago that if he found out that any of his staff members or traders owned Bitcoin or any other crypto, he'd fire them on the spot. Crypto is a right-wing conspiracy theory. Oh, sorry. I take it back. Okay, the government's doing it now. Okay, it's okay. It's all good. It's okay. Yeah.
Well, here's the biggest flip. JP Morgan will now accept Ripple, XRP, for credit card payments.
Boom. Look at that.
Exactly. Okay. Yep. So just like the vaccines, you're a tinfoil hat wearing conspiracy theorist. If you have any questions about it, now, it's perfectly reasonable if you have questions about it. So, I think it's very telling that this case has to do with Ripple's interactions with institutional finance, right? Banks that will spend hundreds of millions or billions of dollars. That's what the case is about, not mum and dad who puts 5 or 10 grand in.
True.
It's about control, absolute control.
All right. Well, there is a little moment I can actually say what I was about to say before. Welcoming to Glenn to the conversation as well. This is great. I want to see lots of questions come through. So thank you to those who are online having a bit of a look. And if you've got any questions or comments, and we've all got comments, we like a bit of free speech around here at Edge. So make sure you make your comments there. You can go on.
Except for the women. I've already had a heap of messages from my shows on pod last week. I'm trying to grow a beard. Okay, I'm sorry if I look scruffy. I'm trying to grow a beard, and every time I do, everyone has a crack at me and goes, "You look terrible." I'm trying to grow a beard. Does it not look good? Is this not a good look for me? I have
the right to remain silent on that one. All right.
It's good to have Fabio on the show today.
That's right.
I just want to. This is really interesting in terms of on the other side of the coin here. No pun intended. But you've got Russia saying it officially wants to legalize crypto mining.
Yeah.
Marking a significant step in BRICS digital currency development. So this is getting even more bigger than the SEC. The SEC might say you've done the wrong thing as far as the United States is concerned.
Yep.
like it or not, these other countries are going, we're going in. And why wouldn't they? Because
wouldn't they?
they've
Exactly
been
right.
pushed out of the SWIFT system, which
Yep.
is the old system from the 70s
Mhm.
that allows international exchange going on from banks and intermediaries. So if I want to send somebody in the US, Australian dollars,
Sure.
they can find the equivalent and change it into US for me and pay that individual.
Mhm.
Now they're saying, right, we want to do this outside of that in terms of currencies, because of course with the conflict that happens, they were cut out of the SWIFT system.
That's
So
right.
they're also looking at doing bartering as well amongst nations to keep it off the radar as far as the US is
Is that
concerned,
right?
because of the SWIFT system.
Well,
So
and that, by the way, is not new as well. I mean, okay, we can go back to we can go back to the 60s when there was a lot of bartering between Italy and the USSR at that time when it came to steel. That's how they were paying their bills with steel. So it's not new. That's 60 odd years old and probably older than that.
well, it's interesting to see
I actually
nations.
used to work for a barter company when I was quite young, actually, and we learned that one of the biggest barter uh, arrangements that had
Mhm.
occurred was between Russia and I believe someone will fact check this. I might be wrong, but I believe it was Russia and Pepsi Cola,
I've heard
where
this.
they actually swapped vodka for Pepsi.
Is that right?
Because vodka was so cheap for them to make in Russia, and Pepsi was so cheap for them to make in the US. Look, if you are going to arbitrarily cut people out of the international financial markets,
Mhm.
and if 30% of the world's economies are also under sanction, it's only a matter of time before they all link up together and say, "Hey, why don't we trade with each other?" It's only a matter of time. So I think, look, we do need to do something about the conflict around the world, but clearly, just excluding countries from international financial markets is not the way to do it.
Well, not at all. Look, these kind of boycotts have never really worked terribly well. I mean, yeah, whether they be sporting boycotts or financials, because where there's a will, there's a way. And I mean, the BRICS nations have certainly proved that. In fact, I would tend to suggest that perhaps what they've done with the BRICS nations is they're going to make another financial superpower that we see the weakness in the US dollar. We see the weakness in the petro system, okay, of that dollar. Perhaps this could be the turning point.
Well, if they had concerns about international nations, now as a conglomerate, the US is finding itself, oh, we've just made the giant even bigger.
Of course they have. Yep.
And that's the big concern here. On the other side of it too, you can see that the BRICS nations are probably in it for different reasons individually, in terms of
No doubt about
what
it.
they're hoping out of the deal.
Yep.
I think, look, the objectives of Russia is going to be very different from the objectives of China.
Yeah.
And why they're doing this. I think Russia's very concerned about the sovereignty of Russia,
Of course.
with it, how it relates to the West on the European side,
Mhm.
and in particular, and have influence with China. But the Russians and Chinese are very different,
Of course.
very different culturally,
Massive.
and have been enemies in the past as well. So
Very good.
it's fascinating. Why would China be doing it well? It comes across as internationally ambitious.
That's beautifully put. Geez, you should be a politician. Look at that.
But
Ambitious.
so what that they have different goals? Yeah, like of course people have different goals. Of course, countries have different goals.
Yeah.
The question isn't whether they've got different goals. The question is the trade that they're trying to do mutually beneficial?
Mhm.
And if it is, of course, they should pursue that. We have sat here in the West and we have used our economic and political might to pursue goals that we don't even care about. Like, for example, the woke stuff.
Well,
We were going to Africa and telling them that they need to embrace LGBTQ. Does China do that when they go into Africa? No. We go to the Pacific Islands, the small countries in the Pacific Islands, Fiji, Vanuatu, Tonga, etc. I can name them all, right? We go in there and tell them to embrace LGBTQ stuff, but we don't give them any ability to enhance their lifestyles and improve their economy. China does.
that's
So
right.
if I was Chinese, I would be saying, "Go China." Thank you, thank you, President Xi, because they are absolutely operating in their best interests. We're the ones that aren't.
We're the fools, quite frankly. Exactly that. We've been working against ourselves in the West for a very long time. And when I say that, we've got an oligarchy system. We've got a system at the top who's just been looking at self-interest, has not cared at all. I mean, we're basically in America, without doubt, and certainly in Australia, we're just about to completely destroy the middle class, right? I mean, we're essentially living in a world right now in Australia where if you own a home, you're a millionaire. That's ridiculous. That's ridiculous. So we've voted for these people. We've allowed the system to overrun us. Some of these other countries are just doing it a lot better, quite frankly.
Yeah, I think the 30% of Australia that voted for Anthony Albanese must be really upset with his performance.
Oh, you know what? They'll vote for him again, though. Here's the problem: they'll vote for him again because they don't.
Oh yeah, no, he'll definitely get 30% of the vote again. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, absolutely lunacy. But
well, it's getting to a point where Australian kids are wondering, can we get into the housing market?
They can't,
right?
And
so they're going to start looking. It was funny last night. My wife loves these renovation shows, particularly her favorite is called Fixer Upper. She's a big fan of Fixer Upper, because they do a really cool style, all that. But she's looking at the prices of the houses, right? They buy this property for $80,000 or $50,000, and then they renovate it, put $100,000 into it, and the house is now worth $120,000, $130,000 with the equity they've built into it. And she's going, that's the price to buy that house is what it costs to buy a new car here in Australia. Why would you? And I think a lot of that generation are probably going to be looking and going, are we better off going overseas and migrating? Can we apply for a passport and visa to get over there, or a visa at least? This is the risk we have here.
Yeah, I love this country very, very much. Will I be retiring in this country? No. Right, I will have to go overseas because I don't have the financial means to actually retire.
Well, not yet.
Not right now, as we stand. And I'm not. And besides, I don't think I'll actually retire. I think I'll drop dead while I'm still working. Let's be very honest, right? I don't think I'm capable.
Even if you're a multi-millionaire, why would you stay here when you can go somewhere else to be treated like a king?
Spot on. Absolutely. Yep.
Right.
Yep.
Keep your assets here, keep the income here, and go somewhere else.
Yeah, it's certainly changed.
Well, it's it's going to be rethought, and this is it's simple in Australia. It's about land release and land control of that. It's not like we're busting with millions and millions and millions of people on 1 square meter. We're not measuring. It's not like we're living on an island. It's a big island, guys.
It's a very big island,
and the population is just tiny.
Give it time. Give it time, Terry. The Labor Party's working on having $1 million, 1 million people per square meter. Do you guys remember Healthy, Wealthy, and Wise? Do you guys remember that show? I remember watching that when I was a kid. I remember I was about 9 or 10, and Paul Clitheroe was giving some advice, and he or not advice, but he was giving some suggestions, and he said that when you buy a home, you should buy a home which is 3 to 5 times your annual income.
Yeah.
Today, you need 3 to 5 times your annual income in savings just to put a deposit down on the home.
Yep. Yeah.
That's how much
the average house is now 8 to 9 times your annual income. Okay.
Yeah.
It's not sustainable. It is truly ludicrous.
And that's not counting for tax as well.
No, not at all. Absolutely right. So you're not going to get it there. No, there's so much wrong. Something I became aware of only very recently that you get obviously all these land deals done here in Western Australia, okay, where they'll open up, say, 50 lots, okay? So no problem. Now, that 50 lots could probably help reduce the problem we have with housing here in Western Australia, with the rental crisis, with the crisis of buying a home. I've got friends right now who have a big chunk of cash in their pocket, can't buy a home, can't find one, right? This is a really big problem. But say the 50 homes are released for this new development. What I wasn't aware of is what they're doing with the venture capitalists in the eastern states, with the fact that, okay, they'll release 50 homes, but they'll release now so that they can get through the West Australian government, so that they can get, the pollies out there cutting the ribbon and doing all that kind of carry on. Of the 50 lots, they'll release literally one single lot to West Australians, and 49 go to venture capitalists in the east, right, who will buy it up because they can see the rental yield is so high. It makes great sense for them. So what have you done? You haven't cured a problem here. You've just brought more rentals into the market on inflated prices, and those inflated prices are keeping people poor forever. This is a massive. Now, I'm for smaller government, but this is a massive failure of our government. They should be stepping in. That should not be able to happen. But when you've got a cozy, and when I'm going to very strongly criticize Labor here, when you have a ridiculously cozy relationship with the development sector here and the Labor government, when they're literally personal friends and they're all these little deals, here, there, everywhere. When you can buy a power station for $1, when you can have that kind of value of land, this has got to stop.
I'll buy the power station for $1. Look, the issue is that in so-called democracy, the issue is that I never will. Well, I'll rephrase that. I never have. Maybe I will one day. I've never voted for the Labor Party. But realistically, if the Labor Party said that they are going to triple immigration, if they said they're going to 10 times immigration
at
the next election, I really, if I'm voting in my best interests, I should vote for them. If they say they're going to make trans issues a mandatory situation, etc., then what I should do is I should move to New Zealand, let them make trans a compulsory thing, and let them increase immigration by 10 times. Why? Because I own property, and my family owns property. And the more that the property goes up, the better it is for me. And the more that immigration is increased, the more that there's a critical housing shortage, the more money there is in property.
Again, that's keeping, that is mates for jobs. That is right now politicians.
Well, it doesn't make for jobs though, Aaron. It doesn't make for jobs. What it makes is a massive increase in the price of non-productive assets.
Absolutely.
And the biggest thing is just note what I said there. If I don't like the politics of Australia, I'll move, but I'll keep my assets here. Yeah. How many international investors own assets here? And people go, "Oh, you got the Foreign Investment Review Board rules." Bullshit. There's so many easy ways around those rules. So, foreign investors buy up property here. You end up with massive increases in asset prices forced by an artificial demand that's caused by poor government policy, and the extra revenue that's generated by that all goes offshore.
Yep, certainly does. All right, time to shift gears.
Well, there are concerns on the housing industry that if they do race to build 1 million new homes, that the construction could be poor and only discovered in about 10 years' time.
Well, you don't even need to wait 10 years, because I'm telling you right now, I've got a friend who has recently built a house in the last sort of just over a year. And I'm sorry, it is so poorly made. It's embarrassing. You can, I mean, apart from the fact that there's not double brick anymore, they're using sort of internal plasterboard, all of that sort of stuff. It is just so poorly made. There's gaps everywhere. It's an embarrassment, right? And he's paid top dollar for this house. It's not like he's bought a cheap house. That's what's going on right now. Unless you can afford Zorzi or someone like that, or Birkengainer or any of these sorts of people, right? The mainstream. Throwing anyone at it. These are not tradespeople. Some of them are just appalling.
So I might not be the brightest spark in the Christmas tree, right? Maybe I'm a dumbass. Can someone please explain to me, if there is such a demand on housing, why are so many home builders going bankrupt and going out of business right now? That's first. And secondly, for our viewers, Aaron just mentioned Zorzi, so he must be hanging around the Dalkeith crowd these days.
No, mate. Look, I have in a previous life. Okay.
Well, my understanding of the building industry is this: that any time that there's a bit of a downturn, the banks start calling in the LVRs as far as the construction industry is concerned. So if they see what's going on internationally, and let's face it, last week was a bit of a warning sign, shot across the bow as far as the markets were concerned, with, of course, the Japanese central bank raising its interest rate, the second time it's done that in 17 years, causing those kind of wobbles in the industry. And of course, everybody knows this is just waiting to happen as far as the markets are concerned. The banks always play it conservative. They don't want the risk, etc. And if the bottom falls out of the real estate market, they don't want half projects that are just not completed as far as construction is concerned to try to have to deal with the offload, because it's a lot harder to sell excuse me, a half house than it is a blank piece of land.
Now, absolutely. Right now, though, you've got okay, YouTube influencers who get on there as real estate influencers of experts in the market, and I hear them blatantly lying to people about the gains that are going to happen, right? And they're not taking into account any of the social changes, and not taking into account the immigration. They're not talking about the change in political climate or what's happening in the stock exchange. It is absolute lies, right, that they are telling, but they create this atmosphere so people feel like the house is going to go on up and up and up. Now, I'm not sitting here as any expert in finance, right? But like, okay, I've lived through, 1987. I've lived through 2008. Okay, I know that the bubble has to burst, right? The bubble has to burst. And when you look at what happened to the Americans back then, we'll say 2008, 2009, and all of those mortgagees losing their homes, this to me, I see real estate right now as long term. It's got to dump.
It's an unknown as far as the Australian real estate market is concerned. You've got to recognise the American market is very, very different.
Yeah, I do.
But yeah, back
So
in 2007, 2008, you saw houses, in ridiculous prices. I mean, we bought a property. I was part of a property syndication at that time in the US, and we bought a property in Arizona, beautiful double story,
right,
for less than 100,000 US. It was like in the 98,000.
Yep.
Fantastic, and we did really well on that property.
So let's just examine a couple of things there. So, firstly, you picked 1987. I hope you lived through 1984 as well, because you should have learned a few things from George Orwell.
I'm living that now.
We've been saying now for the last handful of years that the bubble has to burst, that money needs to be taken out of the system at some point, given the vast amount of money that was spent and the deficit spending in the US. Now, to be fair to the United States, they did have eventually a lower level of inflation than their peer group in Europe, but they also had a significantly higher deficit level. And I've been saying now for a few years that whether that was a good or bad idea is not something that we can tell right now. It's going to be something that economists will debate for generations after us. But in relation to property, look, in 2007, 8, 9, the property bubble burst, and there was a number of other issues which caused the Great Recession.
Of course.
I think it's worth noting that why did it happen? The primary reason for that occurring was because George Bush and Alan Greenspan decided that they wanted to make home ownership, the American dream, the so-called American dream, available to everybody. But in so doing, they caused everybody to buy what they call McMansions, right? Where credit was just available to everybody, and people would end up buying a 6-bedroom, 5-bathroom house, and they were earning $50,000 a year. This is what was a massive cause of that issue. It's also worth noting that you're talking about an unemployment rate of 15 to 25%, causing this calamitous event to occur in the US. Now, we benefited dramatically from the Great Recession. Australia did very well out of it. But you need to look at some of those other countries. You mentioned the BRICS nations before, and have a look at what their unemployment rates are comparative to what happened in the Great Recession, or even worse, compare it to what their unemployment rates are compared to the Great Depression. And then you actually have to sit back and think, wow, how can these countries improve? And it's only a matter of time before those countries start to put in place steps that are going to improve their economies and grow their economies. And we, here in the West, are going to continue down following policies that just don't make any sense, that don't improve us. We've lost our manufacturing. We've lost everything, even our mining. You guys are Western Australia. I'm from Western Australia. Even our mining, all the profits are generated overseas. All of the added profits, where you get the products that are mined and then turn it into something else, the value add, that all occurs overseas.
Oh, that's
and what
all
are we
gone.
left with? Exactly. And what are we left with? Now, why can't we do it here? Oh, because we need to be energy efficient. We need to be carbon neutral and this and that. Meanwhile, our competitors, and let's be very clear, The US isn't our competitor, or the UK or New Zealand. Those were our allies. They're not our competitors. Our competitors are those countries that we do actually trade with. We try and pretend that we don't, but we trade with them. Most Mercedes, as of 10 years ago, most Mercedes Benz that you buy in Australia aren't manufactured in Germany. They're manufactured in South Africa, right? Nothing against South Africa, but the point that I'm making is, most of the manufactured goods that we buy are manufactured in China. Okay, I'm not bagging China. China is absolutely operating in its best interests, but we are sitting here deluding ourselves, or at least allowing the government to delude us, and we are worse off for it.
I remember years ago when I was in the furniture industry, right? We had all the beautiful Jarrah and Marri timber that comes from WA only, right? Okay, all over the world, people want that stuff, right? And the argument was made that, well, we have to now get our Marri and cut it down and send it to China so they can make furniture and send it back to us so we can hit a particular price point. I find that ridiculous. No, you know what it means? We need to refine it. And I understand different wages, and I am oversimplifying it. But when you take all the other factors into it, and especially on that scale, I think that was just very short-sighted. And they weren't looking. I mean, they were not looking at a sustainable market. Now all that market's dead. It's gone, right? And the product that came back was of an inferior quality. They were cutting corners, right? Now, that's one industry. How many industries have been affected like that? I mean, back in my rally days, we would buy BHP steel, right? That's what we would value add. We'd take out iron ore, we would turn it into the product. We don't do any of that. Now, we've now blamed the fact that we have higher wages and we have holiday pay and all those sorts of things. Perhaps, and it was just easier to get that because we have to hit that price point. It's all about hitting that price point. No, it wasn't. It was about hitting that profit. And we've actually lost that value in ourselves and what Australia produces. Quite frankly, as an Australian, okay, for argument's sake, our T-shirts here, I'm not wearing one right now, but our T-shirts, okay, we get them printed here.
You better still have my shirt there.
You're still sitting here, mate, waiting for you. You're a very special one. But, okay, now I could go and get that manufactured in China for probably, 20 cents in the dollar, all right? But you've got to have some sort of pride in your country and also want it to be sustainable. People have gone short-term profits and been very, very selfish, and that's what's caused this to a big extent. I know there's other factors, but you can draw a line. People don't.
So let me just say the Democrats won't be happy with Aaron because as a former industry participant in the furniture industry, he must be great friends with JD Vance, according to the Democrats, and the little couch romance that has been alleged. 20 years ago, I was living in Perth at the time. 20 years ago, I had a friend of mine, or a friend of my old man's, who owned let's just call it a butchery, or a meat processing place. And I bought a heap of meat from him for a birthday party. And I was talking to his business partner, and they had this dried fish. And I said, I was just curious. I'm a curious person. So, like, how do you dry it? Do you get like an industrial dryer or what? Because I was at their plant and I couldn't see one. And he said, "Oh no, what we do is we get the fish, we buy it from Fremantle. They were in Fremantle, that they buy it from the fish markets there.
Yep.
And they used to buy, a ton at a time, whatever it was. They shipped it to Asia, got it filleted and dried and everything, and then shipped it back. And I said, I don't understand. Like, how could you like? Surely it'd be cheaper to just do it here." And he went, "Nope. It is 1/4 of the price for us to do it here. It's 1/4 of the price for us to actually put it on a ship, ship it to Asia, get it done, and ship it back and then sell it. And hey, it's still a product of Western Australia."
Yeah. Look, as I said before, it's not as simple as I said it, but I think that some pride in your state and your product is important. And I think I think for far too long, and you're talking about 20 years ago, and that would be about the time that I'm talking about the furniture game. There was quite a change. We just had this run of, let's get everything done in China. It's cheap. We'll make more money, right? And I think profits just really kind of clouded our judgment.
Look, I agree with you, Aaron. It's not as simple as just a money and cents game. But I think part of the issue is that when you drive wages so high, and people in the middle class who are, especially right now with this cost of living crisis, what are they supposed to do? Maybe spending the extra $300, on a dining table and chairs or something. Hey, like, why should I if I can buy it from overseas? And they're not wrong. They're not bad people. They're just trying to survive. What we've
Survive.
seen is a deterioration in really good industries. I mean, look at the car industry. And this is not a Labor thing. The car industry died. It was dying for a long time, but Tony Abbott put the final nail in the coffin for the car industry. Now we don't see any vehicles being manufactured here. South Australian vehicle manufacturers and engineers who, top of their game, smart, hard-working, dedicated people have been put out of work.
Yeah.
And worse, we're actually importing cars now from countries that have higher wages than what we have here. But
Is
yet
that right?
we're still importing them. What we've seen is politicians, time and time again, sell out Australia for their own benefit and their own,
On the
and their
car,
own.
look, I can speak to this on the car front. Effectively, this is the easiest way to look at it. At the end of the life of the Commodore, right, a third of the price of the Commodore if you purchase a Commodore for XYZ dollars, 1/3 of it, okay, was already paid by the Australian taxpayer. That's not sustainable, and it should never have happened. Right? There were other ways that they could have done with exporting and all that sort of thing. And you are absolutely right. Our politicians got lazy and they just pumped more money in to make it look like we've got an Australian product, whereas they could have done, which they've done in the past many times. There was kit cars coming in, kit cars meaning componentry coming in from other countries. There'd been the export. If you export a certain amount, you'll get certain tax breaks. There has to be a two-way street. And the way that they were propping up the industry was making the industry lazier and lazier and lazier. It's as simple as that.
Explain this to me then. If it was just taxpayer subsidies that was stored in the industry, explain this to me. I think it was either the Blu or whatever it was that Holden was making the engines here, and the vehicle itself was manufactured in the United States, and we were selling them here for like 90 grand, and they were selling them in the US for 30.
Okay.
Same parts manufactured here. The engines, which is the most expensive part of it, manufactured here. How does that work? Now, I accept that there is, at the car dealership and warranty claims and serviceability, etc. I accept that there is a slightly higher price here than what there is over there. We have slightly higher standards here than we have there. But 29, 30,000 to 80, huh? How does that work?
Just on that point, and using the car that you're using as an example, just so you know, it was actually the other way around. The engine came from the US and the car was manufactured here. So that's tin tax, right? So, but you're absolutely right. Like I remember when I was a young fella, okay, and I wanted to go buy myself a nice little sexy car, and I went and ordered an MX-5, right? Okay, in 1989.
I thought you said you wanted to buy a sexy car.
Oh, I loved MX-5. They were brand new. It's great, man. And they're good fun. They're lots of fun. Don't knock.
Bro, I've got a Bentley convertible. What are you talking about? Sexy MX-5. Come on now.
Oh, I can take faster. Anyway, this as a 17-year-old boy, right, I was able to go get a loan. Okay, and that car in Australia back in in 1989 was $29,999, $30,000, right? The same car with higher specification in America, it came with airbags and air conditioning as standard, and it was $9,900. So I absolutely see your point, right? It's the same bloody product, but the two systems and the way, just the bulk and the size of it. So the market, but yeah,
I will concede a point though. I stand corrected because when I was 17, I stole the old man's car. He said I could have it. He said I could have it if I paid him $1,500. So I took it and didn't pay him for about 5 years. And it was an old Ford station wagon. I also didn't have a driver's license, but we won't tell the West Australian police about that. And I had some fun with that. Yeah, totally fucked it up. I had, you know, had like every paddle I think on it was dented, but no, I had a good time with that.
While I
So
was playing cars, you had a shag and wagon, but all right.
you,
There's,
you did better than me. That's the point. But I did have a station wagon, so it wasn't as good as one of those panel vans, but we had some fun.
you can compromise. Right now, we're gonna get out of cars right now. We'll move on to another subject.
We got the Olympic Games that just wrapped up.
Oh, did it? Because I what a shame I missed it.
I missed it too.
Oh,
I know.
tragedy.
Yeah, well, the distractions were going on. There was lots going on in the world. So it's come under, some economists are going, is this a viable business option
No.
anymore as
Here's
far
the
as
answer.
the billions that governments spend
Mhm.
on this? Always the bid budget estimates when they go to the Olympic committees and say, yeah, we can do it for this amount, are always way underestimated as far as the
course.
final costs are concerned. The exception of who made money on it was at Los Angeles back in the day when we were kids, I think, Aaron.
Yeah, 40 years ago. Oh, no.
That was coming off the Moscow Games, and the US worked out how to, I think they made about 120 million at the time in profit from the games, which hadn't really been done before.
No.
And that's because they had a lot of the infrastructure already there in Los Angeles as far as stadiums are concerned.
That's a good point. Didn't build those, did they?
No, they didn't have to.
Yeah.
Just put some cosmetics on it here, put a facade over here and over there and dress it up.
And they're still using these things too, because
Yes.
the building or arena that they use for the opening games is still in use today.
Well, they were using them before.
Yeah,
Los Angeles, this is their football stadium or whatever it might be, right?
Why not?
Yeah.
No, and look, I take my hat off to them on that, because to make a profit. But I think when it comes to Olympic Games, if we had, say, the Olympic Games in Perth, which wouldn't happen, but let's pretend, right? I'm actually at peace with us losing a little bit of money, not a lot, but a little bit, okay, because of what it brings to, and it builds up tourism over the long period, all of that. It's got a long-term flow on, theoretically, right? But it shouldn't be costing billions of dollars.
It's a marketing ploy. That's what you're saying.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's interesting. I think governments are reassessing their stance on this. We certainly saw that with the Victorian government when it came to the Commonwealth Games, going, we want to back out of this contract, and it's going to cost us a lot of money to do so.
Well, they shouldn't have bid on it in the first place. Look, I was living in Sydney when we had the 2000 Olympics. If you're going to make money off it, great, but certainly it's a boost for tourism, and it can subsidise the cost of you building arenas and stadiums and things like that you would otherwise need. So I wouldn't suggest that they shouldn't do it. What I'll just say is it should be up to countries to look at their own financial situation to work out whether or not it's worth doing. I'll also say I've been looking at Olympic Games and trying to work out what I should compete in. And there was that guy that won the shooting thing, and he had no experience or whatever. He broke up with his partner and then took shooting up as a sport, and I can relate. So maybe that's a game for me. But I did say at the beginning of this that I was going to try and be woke. So I thought, well, what else could I do? And I thought, look, maybe I could try gymnastics.
Cool.
But I can't find a leotard that actually fits me. So I was looking at a few other sports, like women's swimming and stuff like that, but I can't find a bikini that fits me. And so what I've settled down in is boxing, and there is an MMA club actually not far from where I'm staying at the moment. And I went there a few weeks ago to ask them if I could have like a 1-month membership before I go overseas. And when I went in there, they had a heap of year 5 and year 6 kids.
Oh, that's
and I said, look, I reckon I've got a shot here, right? So I'm thinking that MMA against the under 12-year-olds is the sport for me. And I reckon I could actually get an Olympic gold medal if I do that. And don't you dare say anything about that, right? It's totally fair. I identify that way, and that is totally fair and reasonable, and nobody should dare say anything about it.
Shaq, you are brave. You're such a brave.
I am, and brave and inspirational.
Absolutely, that's right. I was actually thinking that sport for me for next Olympics is breakdancing, because when I leave the pub, clearly I've got gold medal potential because that woman, the Aussie woman doing the breakdancing, that looks like me walking away from the pub.
Yeah.
Yeah, it really does.
Can,
So,
can I just say, Aaron, I've managed to get you pissed a couple of times, and I promise you, you're better off in the under-12s boxing than you are in breakdancing, my friend. Just remember, like me, you're Indian. We can't dance, break or otherwise.
maybe I tell you right, me rolling out of bed, that's my version of breakdancing these days. It's not easy. It's not easy. All right, I
Have you
reckon
considered the Bollywood? You know, you
Oh, good point. We get some Bollywood music going. That's right. Oh,
But,
mate.
but on a serious note, like, what is this shit in France, right? They have this appalling opening ceremony,
Mhm.
right? They have upset, Christians and Muslims around the world,
Yeah.
unnecessarily so. There was no reason to do that. And then they go, oh no, it was about this Greek thing. No, it wasn't. Bullshit. Firstly, you're France. You don't give a shit about Greece. Okay, that's firstly. But even if you are going to try and make that claim, well, how come your actors and performers didn't know it? And then secondly, what is going on in the boxing world? Are you serious? I mean, come on now. Like, we all know what we're looking at. How can you have a guy bash the hell out of a chick and then go, oh, yeah, well done, well done? I mean, this is just appalling. It's absurd. Nobody likes it. If it's true, which it isn't, but if it's true that these athletes really were born with female parts,
Mhm.
but they have the extra chromosome,
Mhm.
they deserve all of our respect and affection and love. It's not their fault.
Not at all.
However, there needs to be a different category, right? We can't just have them fighting
No,
biological
no,
females
I
and having
disagree.
this sort of advantage.
You know what? Two categories, male, female. Okay, XX or XY. Simple as that. If you want to define how people fit in these categories, really, really simple. XX or XY. If you can't fit into those categories, I certainly don't want to make another category for you. Ultimately, and it just means that the sport's not for you. If you've got that, okay, I had a motorsport career. All right. Now my frame is too big, even when I looked after myself back in the day. I was never going to fit into a Formula One car. So I don't go that path. I go into a sport in a sedan vehicle, right? A sports car vehicle that enables me a little bit more space. Pick the thing that you can your body is suitable. If I am 5'3", I'm not going to go for the NBA. Wake up, smell the coffee, live in the real world.
Yeah, I agree, although I will say I have actually been in a car with Aaron as a exciting bloody experience. Let me tell you. Especially when we were driving through Dalkeith at the time.
Oh, look, roundabouts, I just consider them chicanes. Okay, simple as that. Okay. Oh, dear. All right, that's enough of that. I think we're going to have to wrap the show up. But
One other thing, we are launching a new product at Blu Sky Factory.
I want to know about this, mate.
.com.au. Coming kind of from my experience of having my bank accounts frozen, it kind of got me thinking creatively of how could you work around these sort of things.
You were motivated.
I was very motivated.
Yeah.
So it's kind of come out of this. And I've called this sort of thing as how I am preparing myself for the Great Awakening.
Okay.
So it's called Prepare to Prosper 2024.
Right.
How I'm preparing for the Great Awakening. It's a really out there sort of course, different, not what you expect. I see the window in the economic markets closing very, very quickly. If that's of interest to you, let us know. Get us notice through blueskyfactory.com.au and say you heard it on Edge Radio Australia.
Please do. And I'll tell you right now, as someone who's done
Blu Sky Factory without an E.
That's correct.
That's
BLU.
right. As someone who's done one of your courses, can't recommend them enough. Honestly, get on board. And, I will always say this again, you've ruined me financially for life from the point of view. And now I see the game, and also it reinforces back what old, that Trump speech about the fact that he knew, why the structures were that way and he used them himself. So, and that's why, of course, they won't be changed.
Well, we're definitely going to be looking at the game in this course. So
maybe I should sign myself up and look at it that way. All right. Look,
All right,
get on board.
So now, Aaron, I know you're about to wrap up the show, so I'm going to start a sentence, and you can cut the show off before I finish it.
No.
I just want to say to my Prime Minister, because I am British, Keir Starmer, you are